Everyone at Copper Ridge Community Hospital thought Sarah Whitfield was just the quiet nurse who restocked shelves and never looked anyone in the eye. The administrator mocked her. The doctors ignored her. Then a dying soldier was carried through the doors with a wound no one in that building knew how to fix. And he grabbed her wrist and begged, "Try to save me. I will pay any price." He had no idea the trembling nurse holding his hand had spent years operating beside Navy SEALs in places that do not appear on any map. Before this night ends, an entire town will learn who she really is. If this story grabs you, hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you are listening from, and subscribe so you never miss what happens next. Welcome to Silent Badge's Stories. Try to save me. I'll pay any price. The soldier's hand locked around her wrist. Blood had soaked through the gauze on his chest. His lips were turning grey. "Please," he whispered. "I've got a little girl." Sarah Whitfield looked down at him. The monitor behind her screamed. Somewhere down the hall, a man in an expensive suit was shouting about liability. Nobody in that hospital knew who she was. In 40 minutes, all of them would. 40 minutes earlier, the emergency department of Copper Ridge Community Hospital sat almost empty. A Tuesday night in rural Montana, wind pushing against the windows, 2 patients in the waiting room, one with a fishhook in his thumb. Sarah moved along the supply shelves with a clipboard, counting gauze, counting saline bags, head down, shoulders curved forward, like a woman trying to take up less space in the world. Her hands trembled slightly as they moved across the boxes. They always did. The staff had noticed it months ago and quietly decided what it meant. "Whitfield." The voice came from the end of the hall. "You missed a signature on the inventory sheet. Again." Richard Pell walked toward her the way he walked everywhere, chin up, suit pressed. The hospital administrator held the sheet out at arm's length, as if handing something to a servant. "Sorry, Mr. Pell." Her voice came out small. "You know what this hospital pays in insurance because of documentation errors?" He did not wait for an answer. "More than you make in a year. Probably more than you're worth in a year." A young tech near the nurse's station laughed, then pretended to cough. Sarah signed the sheet, eyes down. Pell pulled it back and studied her signature like he was grading it. "6 months you've been here," he said. "And I still don't know why Denning hired you. 40-year-old nurse. No references worth reading. Hands that shake like a leaf. If it were up to me, you'd be stocking shelves at the grocery store." "Yes, sir." He liked that. The sir. His mouth curved. "The board meets Friday," he said, louder now, for the whole station to hear. "We cut the surgical program 6 months ago and saved this hospital $2 million. Friday I'm proposing we cut 2 more nursing positions." His eyes stayed on her. "Guess whose name is at the top of my list?" He walked away, shoes clicking on the tile. Dr. Grant Mercer, the night ER physician, did not look up from his computer. Nobody defended her. Nobody ever did. Sarah went back to counting gauze. In Bay 4, behind a half-drawn curtain, an old man was watching her. Harold Aldous, 81, came in twice a month with a heart that kept forgetting its rhythm. Tonight it had forgotten again, and he lay hooked to a monitor, wearing the expression of a man who had outlived everyone who owed him money. "Hey," he rasped as Sarah passed. Shaky, the staff's nickname for her. He used it without cruelty, the way old men use whatever word is nearest. "Mr. Aldous, you need something?" "Company that isn't a machine." He nodded at the monitor. "That thing beeps like a truck backing up. Sit a minute." Sarah checked the hall. Empty, perched on the edge of the chair beside him. "You know what I did in Korea?" he said. "You've told me, twice. Field wireman. Ran telephone cable through places God gave up on." His eyes milky at the edges, fixed on her. "You know how I could tell which of the new kids had seen the elephant and which hadn't? The ones who had, they sat facing the door. Every time, every room." Sarah kept her face still. "You always face the door, Shaky." "Habit," she said. "I like to see who's coming." Harold Aldous smiled at the ceiling. "That's what I said, too." Down the hall, Pell's voice rose again, chewing on somebody else now, the pharmacy tech this time. Harold turned his head toward the sound with open distaste. "That one," he said, "has never faced a door in his life." A laugh almost escaped her. Almost. Sarah patted the old man's hand, stood, and put her invisibility back on like a coat. But something small happened then. Something nobody caught. Her eyes lifted for half a second and swept the department. Exits, sight lines, the crash cart, 3 steps to her left. The locked cabinet with the chest tubes. 8 steps. Corner shelf. The old operating room down the West Hall, dark for 6 months. Key hanging in the charge nurse's drawer. A person counts things like that without thinking, if they were trained to. If the training went so deep, it survived everything else. Her eyes dropped again. The trembling hands went back to the gauze. At 11:47, the radio on the wall crackled. "Copper Ridge, this is Guard Medevac Ground Unit. We are inbound to your facility, 10 minutes out." Mercer grabbed the handset. "Go ahead. We have a male, 26, penetrating chest trauma from a training accident at the Blackfoot Range. Steel fragment, left chest. BP 90/60 and falling. He's conscious. Be advised, flight is grounded, storm cell over the pass. You're the closest facility by an hour." The color left Mercer's face. "Copy," he said. "Copper Ridge standing by." He set the handset down and stared at it. "Trauma Room 1, he said finally. "Call Pell, and somebody find me the transfer paperwork for Missoula." Sarah stood very still by the shelves. Penetrating chest trauma, left side. Falling pressure. The words lined up in her head and formed a picture she had seen more times than she could count, under brown canvas, under generator light, under the sound of rotor blades. "Not here," she told herself. "Not you. You count gauze now. That is the deal you made." Her hands, she noticed, had stopped shaking. The National Guard truck came in hard, headlights cutting through the sleet. 2 soldiers in fatigues pulled the stretcher out and ran it through the doors. The man on it was young. Sandy hair, mud on his neck, a pressure dressing taped to the left side of his chest with the kind of tape that comes from a rifleman's aid kit, not a hospital. "Specialist Danny Ruiz," one of the escorts called out. Fragment caught him under the arm when a target frame let go. He walked 20 feet, then dropped. They moved him onto the trauma bed. Mercer put a stethoscope on his chest and listened, forehead creased. "Breath sounds present bilateral," he said, half to himself. "That's good. That's good, right?" Nobody answered him. The 2 ER nurses on shift, Kayla and June, worked the lines and the monitor. Sarah stood at the edge of the room. Nobody had asked her in. Nobody had told her to leave. On the monitor, heart rate 118, blood pressure 88/70. Sarah's eyes narrowed a fraction, 88/70. The 2 numbers sat too close together. A narrow pulse pressure. In a chest wound, that number pattern was not a detail. It was a countdown. "Fragment's still in there," the guard escort said. "Doc at the range said don't pull the dressing." "Nobody's pulling anything," Mercer said. "We stabilize, and we ship him to Missoula. That's a surgical problem, and we don't have a surgeon. We haven't had a surgeon since the program got cut." Danny Ruiz turned his head on the pillow. His eyes were very bright, the way eyes get when the body starts running out of blood to send them. "How far's Missoula?" he asked. 90 minutes by ground," Mercer said. "Chopper can't fly in this." 90 minutes. Danny said it slowly, like he was weighing it. "Soldiers can do math about their own bodies. It is a terrible skill, and all of them have it." His head rolled to the side, and his eyes found Sarah standing by the wall in her faded blue scrubs. People in pain do that. They scan a room and pick a face. Nobody can say why they choose the one they choose. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm not going to make 90 minutes, am I?" It was not a question. Every person in the room heard it. Kayla looked away. June kept her eyes on the IV bag. Mercer opened his mouth and produced a sound that wanted to be reassurance and came out as nothing. Sarah looked at the monitor. Heart rate 124 now. Pressure 84/68. The gap closing like a door. "Neck veins," she said quietly. Mercer blinked. "What?" "His neck veins." Her voice was still soft, still the voice of the invisible nurse. "They're standing up. With his pressure dropping, they should be flat." Mercer looked. The veins on both sides of Danny's neck stood out like cords. "Distended neck veins," Mercer said slowly. "Hypotension. And..." He put the stethoscope back on the young man's chest, over the heart this time, and listened for a long moment. "Heart sounds are muffled. I can barely." He straightened up and his face had gone the color of paper. Somewhere in a textbook, 15 years behind him, 3 signs sat together on a page with a name underneath. "Beck's Triad," Sarah said, so quietly that only Kayla heard her. Later, Kayla would swear on her mother that the mousy nurse said it a full 3 seconds before the doctor did. "That's Beck's Triad," Mercer announced, loud, panic climbing into his voice. "The fragment nicked something. He's bleeding into the sac around his heart. This is cardiac tamponade. Every minute that sac squeezes his heart tighter, and there's not one thing in this building I can. We need to move him now. Get the ambulance. Get Missoula on the phone. Go." The room broke into motion, and in the doorway, sleet melting on the shoulders of his suit, stood Richard Pell, phone already in his hand, eyes already narrow. "Nobody moves this patient anywhere," Pell said, "until I understand our exposure." The word hung in the trauma room like smoke. Exposure. A 26-year-old was drowning inside his own chest, and the man in the suit was talking about lawyers. "Richard," Mercer said, "he has a cardiac tamponade. Blood is filling the sac around his heart. It's crushing it. He needs a surgeon, and we don't have one, because you cut the program." "I balanced a budget," Pell said. "Watch how you talk to me, Grant." He stepped into the room, glanced at Danny the way a man glances at a dented fender. "Is he stable enough to transfer?" "No one with this is stable. Transfer is his only option." "Then document that. Every word. If he dies in that ambulance, it happened under Missoula's acceptance, not under my roof." Sarah stood by the wall and felt something old wake up behind her ribs. It was not panic. It had never once been panic. It was a cold, orderly anger, the kind that arrives with a checklist attached. She knew what the next 90 minutes looked like. She had watched this exact wound run its course on a steel table 11 time zones away, and she knew the schedule the way other people know a bus route. The pericardium is a sac. It does not stretch. Blood leaks in, teaspoon by teaspoon, and every teaspoon steals space from the heart. The pressure climbs. The heart fights a shrinking room. Then, somewhere around 100 milliliters, the room wins. He would code at mile 20. On a dark highway in the back of a rig, with 2 paramedics who had never seen this, and 1 drug box that could not fix it. "Say nothing," she told herself. Hands on the shelf, eyes down. "You made a promise. You buried that woman with her uniform, and you do not dig her up for anyone." "Ma'am." Danny's voice again, thin now. He was looking at her, past Mercer, past the nurses, past the man in the suit, straight at her, the way he had since the moment his eyes first found her. "You knew," he said, "about the neck veins. You knew before the doctor." "I just noticed it," Sarah said. "That's all." "My kid," Danny said. "Sophia, she's 4. Her mom passed last spring. It's just me." His breath caught, short and shallow, the breath of a chest running out of room. "So whatever you noticed, ma'am, keep noticing. Please." Her hand moved before her brain approved it. It wrapped around his and squeezed once, firm, twice, deliberate. 2 squeezes. Old signal. "I have you." She had done it through nitrile gloves in the back of helicopters. Done it for men whose names she still carried like stones sewn into a coat. "Drink of water," Danny whispered. "When this is over, you can buy me one. Deal?" "Deal," she said, before she could stop herself. Kayla shot her a look, the invisible nurse making promises to a dying man. Sweet, the look said, and useless. The next 14 minutes were a lesson in watching a system fail politely. Mercer got Missoula on the line. Missoula accepted, then asked the question that mattered. Estimated time of arrival. Mercer looked at the clock and lied by 10 minutes, and everyone in the room heard him do it. The ground ambulance crew came in to package the patient. 2 young paramedics, good kids, moving fast. One of them looked at the monitor, then looked again. Pressure 78/64, heart rate 131. "Doc," the paramedic said carefully. "The pass roads got slush on the switchbacks. 90 minutes might be 110 tonight. Then drive fast," Pell said from the doorway. He had never left. He watched the room the way an accountant watches a cash drawer. Kayla, hanging a second bag of fluid, said it under her breath, but the room was quiet enough to carry it. "We had a surgeon. We had an OR 20 steps down that hall. We had a heart-lung tray and an ultrasound. He sold it. He sold all of it. And the renovation he promised never broke ground, and nobody ever saw where that money went." "That is slander," Pell said, very fast and very smooth, the way a man answers a question he has rehearsed. "The surgical program was a financial decision ratified by the board, and if you would like to repeat that sentence in front of an attorney." "Kayla, I will happily arrange the room." "Both of you, stop," Mercer said. "Please." On the bed, Danny had begun doing something that made Sarah's jaw set. Between breaths, the pressure reading on the monitor sagged, then recovered, then sagged again, a tide going out in miniature every time his lungs filled. Pulsus paradoxus. The sac was winning. Sarah stood at the shelf, and inside her skull, A briefing was running that no one else could hear. Pressure diving with every breath he takes. The sack has maybe 60, 70 milliliters in it. He arrests before the county line. They will do CPR on a heart that cannot fill, which is like pumping a well with a sealed lid. And he will be dead before the ambulance smells Missoula. Unless someone puts a needle into that sack and buys the pressure back. And then, because a needle only rents time and never buys it, someone opens his chest and finds the leak and sews it shut. There is one person inside 200 miles who has done both. She is holding a clipboard. Her name tag says S. Whitfield, RN, and both of those things are true, and neither of them is the truth. Mercer was signing the transfer packet. His pen was shaking worse than her hands ever had. Dr. Mercer. Sarah heard her own voice cross the room. Still quiet. But something underneath it had changed, some flaw beneath the softness. Before they load him. You could decompress the pericardium, a needle, subxiphoid, take even 50 milliliters of pressure off the heart. It could hold him through the drive. The room went still. Mercer stared at her. A pericardiocentesis. Yes. Blind. No ultrasound guidance. Ours went to the sister campus when they cut the program. His voice climbed. You miss by a centimeter, you lacerate the ventricle, you tear a coronary. He dies right here on this bed. I've never done one. I've seen one once, 20 years ago in residency. He shook his head, and there was real anguish in it. I can't. If I kill him on this bed, that's on me. He is already dying on this bed. Get her out of here, Pell snapped. Since when does housekeeping with a nursing license dictate procedures in my hospital? Whitfield, you are relieved. Go home. That's an order, and Friday just got a lot easier for me. Sarah did not move. On the bed, Danny Ruiz's eyes had begun to wander, the focus in them loosening, the brightness draining out. His lips moved. She read them, because the sounds no longer carried. Any price, his lips said. The paramedics kicked the stretcher's wheels loose. Monitor cables swung. Someone draped a heat blanket over legs that had stopped moving. The doors to the ambulance bay hissed open, and cold air rolled through the trauma room, and sleet came in with it and melted on the floor. Pressure, 72/60. Sarah Whitfield looked at the boy on the stretcher, and then, for one long second, at nothing at all. Kandahar province. 8 years ago. A night with no moon and a wind full of grit. The forward surgical team lived in a tent the size of a 2-car garage, and the table in the middle of it had seen more blood than most hospitals see in a decade. That night the radio said 2 urgent surgicals inbound, and then the weather said no, it did not. Because the same storm that grounds helicopters does not care whose side you are on. So they came by ground. 40 minutes across Bad Road in an armored truck, and the first man through the tent flap was carried by 3 others. And one of the 3 was Senior Chief Cole Brennan, who was also bleeding, and who refused to be looked at until his teammate was on her table. Fix him first, Doc, Cole said. That's an order. You don't outrank me, Senior Chief. Tonight I do. The teammate had a chest full of fragment and a sack full of blood, and the monitor drew the same shrinking numbers Danny Ruiz was drawing now. Sarah put a needle under his sternum by headlamp because the generator was browning out, and she pulled 70 milliliters of pressure off a strangling heart, and then she opened his chest and found the tear and closed it with her hands steady as a bench vise. He lived. He sent her a photograph every Christmas for 8 years. He was living still. Cole Brennan was not. Cole she lost 2 deployments later, on a different night. To a wound no needle reaches, and the last thing his hand did on this earth was squeeze her wrist. Twice. I have you. As if he were the one doing the saving. As if it were his job to make it easier for her. Sarah had flown home beside the casket, and somewhere over the Atlantic, at 40,000 feet, she made the arithmetic every combat surgeon eventually makes. 61 needles. Hundreds of names. The ones who lived did not visit her sleep. Only the ones who did not, and they came promptly, and they never once blamed her, which was the worst part. And she decided she was finished. Finished with tables. Finished with blood. Finished with being the last hand men held. She let the rank go. Let the license sit in a drawer. Took the nursing boards in a city where nobody knew her, because medicine was the only language she had left, and being a nurse was medicine at a volume she thought her heart could bear. 10 hours from any base, a town too small for the past to visit. Count gauze, face the door, shake, so nobody asks you to hold anything important. That was the deal. The stretcher rolled, 3 feet, 6. Danny Ruiz's lips moved again. Any price. Cole Brennan was buried in Colorado. And the invisible nurse of Copper Ridge Community Hospital stepped away from the wall and planted herself directly in the stretcher's path. "Stop the gurney," she said. Nobody recognized the voice. It came out of the small woman in the faded scrubs, but it did not belong to her. It was flat and clear, and carried to every corner of the room without being loud, a voice built for spaces full of engines and screaming. The paramedics stopped. People obey that voice before they decide to. That is what it is for. "Whitfield," Pell started. "So help me. I will have security." "Kayla." Sarah stripped her cardigan off and dropped it on the floor. "Betadine, a 60-milliliter syringe, and the longest spinal needle in that cart. 18 gauge. June, get his head down supine and cut that gown to the waist. Dr. Mercer, put your stethoscope back on and call out his pressure every 30 seconds. You cannot be serious," Mercer breathed. "Move him back under the light," Sarah said. For a heartbeat, nobody obeyed. The order sat in the air, impossible. Nurses do not talk like that. This nurse did not talk at all. Then Danny's monitor alarmed. A new tone, lower, uglier, and the decision made itself. The paramedics rolled him back. June's scissors flew. Kayla ripped open the cart drawer, and her hands found the needle before her doubts found her mouth. "You will lose your license," Pell said. His voice cracked on the last word. "Whatever dime store license you have, you will lose it, and I will make certain of it personally." "Noted," Sarah said. "Betadine, 3 swipes. Wide circles below the breastbone. Gloves." Her hands moved through the sequence with a smoothness that made Kayla step back without meaning to, because the tremor was gone, completely gone, as if it had been a costume the hands wore and had just now taken off. "What is happening?" Mercer whispered. It was not directed at anyone. Sarah's fingers walked the young man's ribs and found the notch beside the xiphoid, the little doorway under the sternum that God leaves for exactly one purpose. Left of the xiphoid, 1 finger's width, 45 degrees, aim for the left shoulder. "Danny," she said, "stay with me. Squeeze my wrist if you hear me." A squeeze. Weak. 1. Good enough. "Pressure 68, Mercer read out, hushed. "Needle." Kayla slapped it into her palm. Then quietly, "Do you want me to call out landmarks for you? From the manual?" "No," Sarah said. "But thank you, Kayla. That was the kindest offer anyone in this town has made me." The steel touched the skin below his sternum, and the room stopped breathing. "Ma'am," the young paramedic whispered. Have you done this before?" Sarah did not look up. 61 times, she said, and slid the needle in. The steel disappeared centimeter by centimeter, angled at the left shoulder, her left hand anchored on his ribs like the needle, and her fingers were one machine. Nobody moved. Sleet ticked against the windows, 2 centimeters, 3. She felt for it the way you feel for a step in the dark, that faint give, the membrane's small surrender. There. Sarah drew back on the plunger, and the syringe bloomed dark red. "I'm in the sack," she said, aspirating. Blood climbed the barrel. 10 milliliters, 20, 30. Old blood, the color of rust, blood that had been strangling a heart for an hour. "Pressure." Mercer stared at the monitor and forgot to finish his own sentence. The numbers were moving. 74, 79. "Pressure's coming up. Pressure is coming up." 40 milliliters, 50. On the bed. Danny Ruiz took a breath so deep it lifted his shoulders off the mattress. The first full breath his chest had been allowed in an hour, and the gray in his lips broke apart like ice leaving a river. "Oh," he said, "just that. The sound a man makes when the piano is lifted off his chest." 88 over 60, Mercer read, voice shaking. 91. Heart rate coming down through 110. Kayla was crying and did not appear to know it. The older paramedic had his hand over his mouth. June looked at Sarah the way you look at a stranger who has been sitting at your kitchen table for 6 months. 60 milliliters. Sarah stopped, taped the catheter in place, and looked at her patient. "Sophia," Danny said. His voice had come back. "My girl, I get to." "You get to embarrass her at her wedding," Sarah said. "Do not make me a liar." And then she straightened up, and the softness that Copper Ridge had known for 6 months did not come back into her spine. Her shoulders sat square now, level as a rifle rack, and when her eyes moved across the room, people stood up straighter without knowing why. By the door, one of the guard escorts, a staff sergeant with a combat patch and grey coming in at his temples, had gone very still. His eyes were on her hands, then on the taped catheter, then on her face, and something behind his expression was working, turning over, digging through years. "Sergeant," Sarah said without looking at him, "you have a radio in that truck?" "Yes, ma'am." "Get your battalion aid station on it. Tell them you have a casualty post pericardiocentesis with a retained fragment and a surgical chest. And give them this location." A beat. "They will know what to do with that sentence." "Yes, ma'am." He said it before his brain caught up with his mouth, said it the way a man says it on a range with an instructor behind him, and then he stood there 1 second longer, staring at her. "Something on your mind, Sergeant?" "Subsiphoid, blind." "No ultrasound, first pass." His voice was low. "I did 2 tours as a line medic, ma'am. I've watched trauma docs at Landstuhl refuse that stick. Who taught you that?" "The United States Navy," Sarah said. "Radio, now." He moved. Men like that recognize a certain voice, and they move. "Everyone listen carefully," Sarah said to the room. "The needle bought him 90 minutes. It did not fix him. The fragment tore something, and that sac is refilling as we stand here. He arrests on that mountain road tonight, unless the leak is closed. So he is not going to Missoula." Her head turned, slow and level, toward the dark west hallway. "Open the operating room." The words dropped into silence. "The OR is closed," Pell said. "Decommissioned, mothballed. There is no anesthesia, no scrub team, no lawyer alive who would let this happen. There is no surgical team within 100 miles, you demented woman. There is no surgeon." "Richard," Mercer's voice came out strange. He was looking at Sarah, at the catheter, at the monitor reading 94/66, at 60 milliliters of pericardial blood in a syringe on a tray, drawn blind, first pass, by a woman the whole building called Shaky. "Richard, I don't think you understand what we just watched. I understand a nurse performed an unauthorized invasive procedure in my facility, and I understand that every person in this room is a witness, and I understand that her career ended 30 seconds ago." Pell had his phone out. "I am calling the sheriff, and then I am calling the state board, and Whitfield, if that boy so much as hiccups, I will see you charged." Danny Ruiz lifted his head off the pillow, color in his face now, fire in it too. "Her career?" His voice cracked across the room. "She's the only reason I have a pulse, you." He caught himself, breathed, chose the discipline. "Sir, with respect, shut up." "Save your strength," Sarah told him. "You will need it. All of you will." She turned back to Pell, and when their eyes met, his thumb stopped over the phone screen because whatever he saw in her face was not a nurse and had not been for a long time. Sarah Whitfield pulled off her bloody gloves, one finger at a time, and looked at him with the flat, patient eyes of a woman who had been spoken over for the last time in her life. "You want to make calls, Mr. Pell? Good. Make this one first. Call your board, wake every one of them up, and tell them their hospital has 1 hour to reopen that operating room, or they can explain to the United States Army why a soldier died 40 steps from a repair one trained surgeon could perform." Her voice never rose. It did not need to. "Because there is a surgeon in this building." "There is no surgeon in this building," Pell spat. "Yes," she said, "there is." The call from Fort Liberty came at 4:12 in the morning, when rain was tapping the bedroom window and Kate Brennan was sleeping for the first real stretch she had allowed herself in a week. Her phone vibrated across the nightstand once, stopped, then started again. Kate opened her eyes before the second ring finished. Old habits did not die. They slept light. She reached for the phone, saw Colonel Reynolds' name, and sat up. "Brennan, I need you to listen before you say no," Reynolds said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Kate swung her feet to the floor. "What happened?" "Training accident. Combat medic program. 4 injured. 1 critical." Kate stood. "You have doctors there." "Not for this." Those 3 words did what alarms used to do. They cut through every layer of civilian life and found the part of her that still kept boots by the door. Kate walked into the hallway. Her house was quiet. A framed photo of Riverside General's new ER team hung near the stairs. Another photo showed her with the Morrison family at the foundation opening. The woman in those pictures looked settled, almost peaceful. The woman holding the phone was already counting seconds. "Define critical," Kate said. 23-year-old trainee, blast simulator malfunction, penetrating trauma, crush injury, airway burns, possible compartment syndrome. Local trauma center is handling him. But the team froze. They were your students from last month. Kate closed her eyes. She had spent the past year teaching combat medics not to freeze when the room filled with blood. She had told them fear was not failure. She had told them the hand that shook could still save a life. Now one of them was on a table somewhere, and the others were watching the lesson become real. "Who is the trainee?" Kate asked. Reynolds paused. That pause was the answer. "Aaron Morrison," he said quietly. The hallway disappeared. For 1 second, Kate was not in her house. She was in dust and smoke. A 19-year-old soldier was bleeding out under her hands. David Morrison, Aaron's brother, the one she could not save. The ghost she had finally learned to carry differently. Now Aaron was hurt. "Where?" Kate asked. "Womack Emergency Surgical Unit. I'm sending a helicopter." "No helicopter. Weather's bad." "Kate." "I'm driving to the hospital. Send me the surgical notes, vitals, mechanism, blood products, everything. And Reynolds?" "Yeah. Tell the team not to touch the tourniquet until I get there, unless his pressure crashes. You understand you are not on orders anymore." Kate grabbed her jacket from the chair. "Tell that to his femoral artery." 40 minutes later, Kate drove through hard rain with both hands on the wheel and David Morrison's dog tags under her shirt. The windshield wipers beat out a rhythm that matched the pulse in her throat. Her phone sat in the cup holder on speaker. Reynolds gave updates every few minutes. Pressure 90/60, heart rate 142, lactate climbing, they intubated, good tube placement, burns are superficial but airway swelling is possible. Blood, 4 units packed cells, 2 plasma. TXA already given. Good, who's leading? Major Ellen Park, trauma surgeon, skilled, but she has 3 other patients from the accident. Then she needs a second pair of eyes. That's why I called you. Kate took the exit too fast, corrected without thinking, and steadied the car. The road into the base was a river of red taillights and security barriers. Military police waved her through after one look at the credentials Reynolds had sent ahead. The hospital rose out of the rain, bright and severe, every window burning white. Kate parked crooked near the emergency entrance. Reynolds met her at the doors. He looked older than she remembered, not weaker, just more human. Retirement had not softened him, but it had removed the armor that rank used to provide. "He's in OR 2, Reynolds said. "Still alive?" "Yes." "Then move." They went through corridors that smelled like antiseptic, wet uniforms, and old fear. Medics stood against walls with blood on their sleeves. Young soldiers looked up as Kate passed. Some recognized her from the training program. Some only knew the name. Director Brennan. Sergeant Brennan. The medic who saved Wolf. The nurse who brought down Riverside. Kate did not slow down for any of it. OR 2 was controlled chaos. Major Park stood at the table, elbows red, face focused. Aaron Morrison lay beneath surgical drapes, pale and swollen, a ventilator moving air into lungs that did not want to cooperate. A nurse called numbers. An anesthesiologist adjusted meds. A resident held suction with hands that trembled just enough for Kate to notice. Park looked up when Kate entered. "You, Brennan?" "Yes." "Scrub. If Reynolds trusts you, I trust you. No ego. No theater." Kate respected her immediately. She scrubbed in at the sink while Reynolds watched from the door. Soap foamed over old scars across her knuckles. One scar came from shrapnel, one from a broken windshield in Kandahar, one from Riverside, when a patient in withdrawal had grabbed a tray and swung wild. Every scar had a story. Every story had a cost. Kate gowned, gloved, and stepped to the table. "Brief me," she said. Park did not waste time. Blast simulator casing fragmented. Penetrating wound upper thigh. Crush component from collapsed prop wall. "We controlled visible bleeding, but pressure won't hold. Pelvis stable. Fast negative twice. Distal pulse weak. Leg tense." Kate looked at Aaron's leg. Swollen, tight, angry. "Compartment," she said. "That's my read." "Then why haven't you released it?" Park's jaw tightened. "Because his pressure drops every time we manipulate the thigh. I think we're missing a feeder." Kate leaned closer. The wound track was ugly, not cinematic. Real trauma never was. It was wet, irregular, deceptive. It hid problems behind problems. "Retractor," Kate said. The resident handed it over. Kate adjusted the angle. Not much, just enough. A small dark well opened beneath torn tissue. Then it pulsed. Not dramatic, not spraying across the room, just a soft, deadly push of blood with each heartbeat. "There," Kate said. Park's eyes sharpened. "Deep femoral branch. Clamp." The resident moved too slow. Kate looked at him. Now. The clamp slapped into her palm. Kate placed it with the delicate force of someone who knew the difference between saving tissue and destroying it. Aaron's pressure began to climb. 92, 98, 106. The anesthesiologist exhaled. Park nodded once. Good catch. Not done, Kate said. He needs fasciotomy before that leg becomes a memory. Park's eyes flicked to the monitors. Agreed. They worked for the next hour without drama. That was how the best saves happened. Not with speeches, not with music. Just good hands, clear orders, and people willing to listen before pride killed the patient. Kate talked the resident through the release. Long incision. Do not be timid. The leg is already injured. Your job is to give it room to survive. The resident swallowed. Yes, ma'am. Not ma'am. Brennan is fine. Yes, Brennan. The fascia opened. Muscle bulged outward, dark but viable. Color, Kate asked. Better, Park said. Stim response? Present. Kate allowed herself one breath. Not relief. Not yet. Aaron was alive, but alive was a door, not a destination. When they closed what could be closed and packed what could not, Park stripped off her gloves and looked at Kate across the table. You teach them like that? Like what? Like you expect them to survive their own fear. Kate looked at Aaron's face. He was pale beneath the tape and tubes. Too young. David had been too young too. I teach them because fear is coming whether they train for it or not, she said. Might as well give them something to do when it arrives. Park studied her for a moment. Reynolds said you might take over the medic program. Reynolds says a lot. You should. Kate looked at her. Park nodded toward Aaron. Today proved it. They don't need instructors who make them feel tough. They need instructors who make them honest. The words followed Kate into the hallway. Reynolds was waiting near the scrub room, arms folded, face unreadable. He's stable, Kate said. Reynolds shut his eyes for half a second. It was the closest he came to falling apart. How bad? He could lose some function. Maybe not. Too early. But he has a leg to worry about because Park kept him alive and someone finally saw the bleed. You saw it. Park would have. Maybe. Kate was too tired to argue. A small group of trainees stood at the far end of the hall. 4 young medics in training uniforms. Rainwater still darkened their boots. Their faces looked wrecked. One of them, a red-headed kid named Tyler Ames, stepped forward. Sergeant Brennan, he said. I'm not a sergeant anymore. You are to us. Kate looked at the blood on his sleeve. That Aaron's? Tyler nodded. His mouth trembled. I froze, he whispered. I saw his leg, and I froze. I knew the steps. I heard your voice in my head, but I couldn't move. The others looked away. Shame had a temperature. Kate could feel it in the hallway. She walked to Tyler and stopped close enough that he had to meet her eyes. Did you leave him? No. Did you run? No. Did you keep pressure? Yes, but Reynolds had to yell at me. Then you did not freeze. You slowed down under shock. There's a difference. Tyler blinked hard. But I should have done more. Everyone thinks that after. Kate looked at the other trainees. All of you listen to me. The first real casualty will take something from you. Confidence, sleep, appetite. It will take whatever it can reach. Do not hand it your whole life. Learn, debrief, train, then show up again. That is the job. A young woman named Lopez wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. What if showing up again makes it worse? Kate touched the dog tags under her collar. Then you show up with help. Nobody survives this work alone. The ones who pretend they do are usually the first to break. The hallway stayed silent. Then Tyler nodded once. Not healed, not fixed, but listening. Kate turned to Reynolds. Where's the training commander? Colonel Hasker, conference room. Take me to him. Reynolds did not ask why. That was one of the reasons she trusted him. Colonel Adrian Hasker was exactly the kind of officer Kate disliked before he opened his mouth. Tall, pressed uniform, polished shoes, perfect ribbons, jaw built for photographs. He stood at the head of the conference table with 3 captains, 2 safety officers, and 1 civilian contractor whose company logo was on the malfunctioning blast simulator. The contractor was speaking when Kate entered. With respect, this was a trainee error. The device functioned within expected parameters. If the subject group had maintained proper distance, the injuries would not have occurred. Kate stopped walking. Reynolds muttered, "Oh no." The contractor looked at her. "Can I help you?" "You can stop talking." His eyebrows rose. Hasker frowned. And you are? Kate Brennan. One of the captains straightened. He knew the name. Hasker's expression shifted, but not enough. Director Brennan, this is an internal safety review. A trainee is in the ICU because your simulator threw metal fragments into a live training lane. That makes it medical, operational, and criminal if anyone lies. The contractor stiffened. That is an irresponsible accusation. Kate walked to the table. A twisted piece of metal sat in an evidence bag near the projector. She picked it up without touching the seal. This came from the casing? A safety officer nodded. Recovered near the blast point. Kate turned the bag toward the light. This edge is fresh, not weathered, not fatigue over time. It fractured under pressure today. The contractor forced a laugh. Are you an engineer now too? No, I just know what metal does after explosions. The room went quiet. Kate looked at Hasker. Pull the maintenance logs. Hasker folded his arms. We are already reviewing them. Pull the real logs, not the ones this company gives you after they clean the printer. The contractor's face changed, small, fast. But Kate saw it. Hasker saw her see it. Captain Miles, Hasker said, get the logs, all of them. The contractor stepped forward. Colonel, I must object to this hostile environment. My company has provided training support for 8 years. We have never had a major incident. Kate placed the evidence bag back on the table. You had one today. Because trainees failed to follow protocol. Aaron Morrison followed protocol. The medics followed protocol. Your device failed. You cannot know that. Kate leaned toward him. I know one more thing. You blamed wounded trainees before the blood dried. People who tell the truth don't usually need to move that fast. The contractor's mouth opened, then closed. Hasker looked at Kate for a long moment. You are direct. Usually when people bleed. Reynolds warned me. Not enough, apparently. For the first time, Hasker's hard expression cracked, almost a smile. Then Captain Miles returned with a tablet and a pale face. Sir, the internal maintenance logs do not match the contractor logs. The contractor went still. Miles continued. There were 3 pressure irregularities reported last month. 2 casing replacements recommended, both deferred. The contractor report lists them as completed. Hasker's voice dropped. Deferred by whom? Miles looked at the contractor. By their regional safety director. Signed off by Mr. Langley here. Langley raised both hands. This is being taken out of context. Kate looked at Reynolds. Call federal safety investigators. Langley laughed once. For a training accident? Kate's eyes stayed on him. For falsified maintenance records on equipment used around soldiers. Hasker turned to the safety officers. Secure every simulator. Shut down the lanes. Nobody touches that equipment until outside investigators clear it. Langley reached for his phone. Reynolds took it from his hand. You can make calls after the MPs arrive. Langley stared at Kate with pure hatred. She had seen that look before. Pike had worn it. Voss had worn it. People who profited from negligence always hated the person who named it. Kate did not hate him back. Hate wasted energy. She preferred evidence. By evening, Aaron Morrison was stable in the ICU. Langley was in military police custody, and the medic training program had been suspended pending review. Kate stood outside Aaron's room with Teresa and Robert Morrison. Teresa's face looked older than it had at the foundation opening. Fear had done that in a day. Can we see him? Robert asked. For a few minutes, Kate said. He's sedated. He won't respond much. But he may hear you. Teresa took Kate's hand. You saved another one of my boys. Kate felt the old reflex rise. Deny it. Minimize it. Pass credit to someone else. Instead, she forced herself to hold Teresa's gaze. We saved him. Major Park, the team, everyone. But you came. Yes. Teresa squeezed her hand. Thank you for coming. The sentence hit harder than praise. Kate nodded once because anything more would have broken her voice. Inside the room, Aaron lay surrounded by machines. His injured leg was elevated, wrapped, monitored. His chest rose and fell with mechanical help. He looked like a boy and a soldier at the same time. Teresa sat beside him and touched his hair. You're not allowed to scare me like this, she whispered. Robert stood at the foot of the bed, one hand gripping the rail. Kate stayed near the door. This was family ground, not hers. Then Aaron's fingers twitched. Teresa gasped softly. Kate moved to the monitor, heart rate up, blood pressure stable, sedation lightening. Aaron, Kate said. It's Brennan. You're in the ICU. You're safe. Don't fight the tube. Blink if you hear me. His eyelids fluttered. Once. Teresa covered her mouth. Kate stepped closer. Your leg is still there. You have work ahead, but it's still there. Your parents are here. You did not fail. Your team did not fail. Understand? Another blink. A tear leaked from the corner of his eye. Kate's throat tightened. Good, she said. Rest now. That is an order from a retired person who can no longer give orders but does it anyway. Teresa laughed through tears. Aaron's fingers twitched again. Kate left before anyone could see what that moment did to her. She found Reynolds in the hallway near the vending machines. He handed her a terrible cup of coffee. Thought you needed this. This is punishment. It's hospital coffee, same thing. For a moment, they stood together without speaking. Through the glass, the ICU lights glowed soft and blue. Families waited in plastic chairs. Nurses moved like ghosts between rooms. Somewhere down the hall, a ventilator alarm chirped and stopped. Hasker wants to talk to you, Reynolds said. About Langley? About the program. Kate drank the coffee and regretted it immediately. The program is suspended. For now. He wants it rebuilt before the next class. Good. He should rebuild it. He wants you to lead the rebuild. Kate laughed once. No humor in it. I have a hospital. Riverside has a director now, a good one. You said that yourself. I have the foundation. It has a board. I have a life. Reynolds looked at her. Yes. And this might be part of it. Kate stared at the coffee cup. This was how the past worked. It did not always kick doors down. Sometimes it knocked politely and offered a job description. I can't go back to being Army, she said. Nobody's asking you to. It feels like it. Then define the terms. You have gotten very good at that. Kate looked toward Aaron's room. If I rebuild that program, it won't be the old way. Good. No more breaking trainees to see who survives. No more pretending trauma is weakness. No more contractors with blank checks and dirty logs. No more instructors who think humiliation is teaching. Good. They learn medicine. They learn judgment. They learn how to come home after the blood is off their hands. Reynolds smiled faintly. You sound like you already accepted. I sound like I'm angry. With you, those are often connected. Kate gave him a look. He smiled fully now. There she is. The next morning, Kate stood in front of 37 medic trainees in a room that had become too quiet. The training accident had scared them. Langley's arrest had confused them. The suspension had left them with nowhere to put their shame. Hasker introduced her with too many titles: director, sergeant, Bronze Star recipient, founder, consultant. Kate let him finish, then walked to the front with no notes. Yesterday, Aaron Morrison almost died, she said. Every face lifted. Good. No soft entrance. No comfortable lie. Some of you were there. Some of you heard about it. Some of you are already telling yourselves what you would have done better. Stop. A few trainees shifted. Imagine courage is cheap. Real blood is different. Your hands get slick. Your brain gets loud. Your training either shows up or it doesn't. Yesterday, some training showed up. Some didn't. That is not a reason to quit. It is a reason to learn. Tyler sat in the second row, eyes red but focused. Lopez sat beside him, jaw tight. Kate pointed to the empty whiteboard. We're doing the real debrief, not the kind designed to protect careers, the kind designed to save the next casualty. You will tell the truth. No rank games, no ego, no blame without facts. We start with the first sound you heard. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Then Lopez raised her hand. The blast sounded wrong, she said. Kate picked up a marker. Wrong how? Too sharp. The simulator usually thumps. This cracked. Kate wrote, sound different. Good. What did you do next? Lopez swallowed. I ducked. Then I looked for the lane instructor. Why? Because I thought maybe it was part of the scenario. Kate wrote, scenario confusion. Important. Training that looks like reality can make reality look like training. That delay can kill. How do we fix it? A trainee in the back said, emergency word, something that ends the scenario instantly. Good. What word? Black flag? Kate wrote it down. Black flag means the scenario is dead and real life has started. Everyone repeats it. Nobody waits for permission. Next. Tyler raised his hand slowly. I saw Aaron down. I saw blood. I put pressure, but I didn't call the injury right. What did you call? Simple thigh bleed. What was it? Deep arterial branch. Crush and compartment. Why did you miss it? His face burned. Because I wanted it to be simpler than it was. Kate turned back to the board. That answer mattered. She wrote, "Wishful diagnosis." "This kills people," she said. "Not stupidity. Not lack of effort. Wanting the wound to be the wound you can handle instead of the wound in front of you. Remember that." The debrief lasted 3 hours. People cried. People argued. People admitted things they did not want to admit. Hasker stood in the back and said nothing, which was the smartest thing he had done so far. At the end, the board was full. Sound different. Scenario confusion. Wishful diagnosis. Pressure failure. Command delay. Contractor failure. Instructor blind spot. Emotional lock. Kate faced the room. "This is not a wall of shame. This is a map. Shame says hide it. Discipline says study it. We study it. Then we train again." A trainee asked, "When?" Kate capped the marker. "Tomorrow, with safer equipment, better protocols, and no lies." Hasker caught up with her outside. That was brutal. It was honest. Same thing sometimes. Kate looked at him. "You have a problem in your culture." Hasker did not flinch. "I know." "Do you?" "Because the contractor is easy. Bad equipment, bad logs, bad actor, clean story. But your instructors let a company run dangerous equipment because the paperwork looked convenient. Your trainees were afraid to call a real emergency because they thought failing a scenario was worse than trusting their instincts. That is culture." Hasker's jaw flexed. "You're right." Kate expected resistance. She did not get it. That surprised her more than denial would have. "I built part of that culture," Hasker said. "I thought stress made them stronger. I thought if they could function while being yelled at, they'd function under fire. Sometimes yelling just teaches people to ignore the only voice in their head that might save someone. I know that now." Kate softened by 1 degree. "Knowing is the easy part. Changing will make people hate you." "I'm a colonel. People already hate me." Kate almost smiled. "You'll need independent medical authority over the program," Hasker said. "Safety veto, curriculum control, contractor review, mental health integration, full access." You wrote all that down fast. "Reynolds texted me your conditions before I asked." Kate looked down the hall and saw Reynolds pretending not to watch them. "Of course he did." Hasker extended a folder. "Interim Director of Combat Medic Resilience and Field Medicine Training. Civilian appointment, 6-month trial. You answer to medical command and me. Nobody else." Kate did not take the folder. "I need time. You have 48 hours. I said time, not a countdown." Hasker lowered the folder slightly. "Fair, but the next class starts in 8 weeks. If we're going to rebuild, we need you now." Kate looked through the ICU window down the hall. Aaron's parents were still beside his bed. Then she looked at the trainees filing out of the classroom. Young faces, brave faces, scared faces. Somebody had to teach them what nobody had taught her until years later. How to save lives without losing themselves, one patient at a time. "I'll read it," Kate said. Hasker nodded. "That's all I ask." That evening, Kate returned to Crestston Falls and walked into Riverside General just as the sun was going down. The ER doors opened with the same pneumatic sigh they always had. But the place was not the same. Not anymore. The floors were clean. The monitors worked. The nurses looked tired, but not defeated. A veteran advocate sat near registration, helping an older Marine fill out paperwork. A new charge nurse directed traffic with calm authority. On the wall behind the desk hung a small plaque. "Patient first. Always." Kate hated plaques. But this one had been earned. Dr. Sienna Cole, her replacement as director, came out of Trauma Bay 3. "You look like a woman avoiding a decision," Cole said. Kate blinked. "Nice to see you too." Reynolds called. Of course he did. Cole motioned toward Kate's old office. They walked upstairs together. The office no longer looked like Pike's. It no longer looked like Kate's either. Cole had added plants, new photos, a bowl of candy for staff, and a whiteboard filled with actual planning instead of panic. Kate sat in the visitor chair. That felt strange. Cole shut the door. "Take the job," she said. Kate leaned back. Subtle. "You trained me to be direct. I also trained you to assess before intervention. I assessed. Riverside is stable. The foundation is stable. You are restless." Kate looked out the window. From this office, she could still see the ambulance bay where Wolf had arrived half dead. The lot where her car had been spray-painted. The entrance where she'd walked back in after being fired. "This place needed you," Cole said. It still loves you, but it doesn't need you the same way. That's not abandonment. That's success. Kate hated how right that sounded. Aaron almost died today. I heard. His team froze, the equipment failed, the training culture failed. Then go fix it. Kate looked at Cole. You make it sound simple. No. I make it sound like you. For a while, neither spoke. The ER moved beneath them. A child cried. Someone laughed. A monitor alarm chirped and stopped. Life doing what life did, messy and fragile and relentless. I'm afraid, Kate said. Cole did not look surprised. Of what? Going back, letting the uniform world swallow me again, becoming useful until I'm empty. Cole nodded. Then don't go back as the person who left. Go back as the person who learned boundaries, therapy, delegation, sleep, and the value of threatening administrators with documentation. Kate laughed, despite herself. Cole smiled. You are not the same woman who hid here. You know that, right? Kate touched the dog tags under her shirt. Some days. On the days you forget, call me. I'll remind you loudly. Kate left Riverside after midnight. She did not drive home right away. Instead, she went to the cemetery. The 3 veterans who died under Pike's administration were buried near the old oak by the east fence. Their families had chosen the plots together after the trial. Kate visited whenever a decision felt too heavy. Rain had stopped. The grass shone black under moonlight. Kate stood before the graves and read each name. Sergeant James Kowalski, Private Lisa Martinez, Captain David Riordan. Then she took David Morrison's dog tags from beneath her collar and held them in her palm. Aaron lived, she said into the quiet. The cemetery gave no answer. It never did. That was why she came. No applause, no pressure, no one asking her to be heroic, just names and silence. I think they want me to teach again, she said. Not just a workshop, not a speech, the whole program. Wind moved through the oak branches. I don't know if it's courage or punishment that makes me want to say yes. She stood there a long time. Then a memory came, not violent, not sharp. David Morrison smiling in the dust, asking if she thought he'd make corporal before his mother stopped calling him baby. Aaron years later pressing his brother's dog tags into her hand. Teresa telling her thank you for coming. Kate closed her fingers around the tags. Maybe it doesn't have to be punishment, she whispered. The next morning she called Patricia Rains. Her therapist answered on the 3rd ring. Kate, I need a sanity check. Then I'm glad you called me instead of Reynolds. Kate smiled faintly. She told Rains everything. The accident, Aaron, the contractor, Hasker, the job offer, the fear. Rains listened without interruption. That was her superpower. When Kate finished, Rains said, You already know what you want. That is annoying. Truth often is. What if I repeat the same pattern? Work until I break. Save everyone except myself. Then you build protections before you start. Written limits, therapy schedule, delegated authority, mandatory rest. People empowered to tell you no. People tell me no all the time. People you actually listen to. Kate said nothing. Rains continued. Trauma recovery does not mean avoiding every place that reminds you of pain. Sometimes it means returning with tools, support, and the right to leave when you need to. So you think I should take it? I think you should stop asking whether the past is allowed to be part of your future. It already is. The question is whether you shape it or let it chase you. Kate wrote that down. Not because it was poetic, because it was operationally useful. 48 hours later, Kate stood in Colonel Hasker's office with Reynolds beside her and the appointment folder on the desk. Hasker looked ready for negotiation. Kate gave him 12 pages. My terms. Hasker picked them up. His eyebrows climbed by page 2. This is extensive. You asked me to rebuild a program that nearly killed a trainee. Extensive is friendly. Reynolds coughed into his fist. Hasker kept reading. Independent safety veto. Direct reporting channel to medical command. Mandatory psychological decompression after live casualty exposure. Contractor audits by outside teams. Scenario stop word protocols. Instructor accountability board. Trainee feedback without retaliation. He looked up. You want authority to remove instructors? Yes, even officers, especially officers. Hasker set the pages down. This will make enemies. Then it is probably close to useful. A long silence followed. Hasker looked at Reynolds. You warned me she was difficult. I said effective. Reynolds replied. You said both. Both can be true. Hasker looked back at Kate. Accepted. All terms. 6-month trial. Renewable by mutual agreement. Kate took the pen. For one heartbeat, her hand hovered above the signature line. This was the point of no return. Not back into the army. Not back into hiding. Into something harder. A life where she chose which parts of herself came forward. She signed. Good, Hasker said. You start Monday. No, Kate said. I start now. The first thing Kate did was cancel every scheduled training lane. The second thing she did was walk the entire facility. Not with Hasker, not with a welcoming committee. Alone. She touched equipment, read labels, checked expiration dates, opened storage rooms, asked privates where broken things were hidden, asked nurses which forms everyone lied on, asked instructors what scared them about the program, and watched who answered too fast. By noon, she had a list of 63 problems. By dinner, she had 91. By midnight, Hasker had stopped looking surprised. Do you ever stop finding broken things? He asked. Kate looked at the cracked seal on a training blood warmer. Do people ever stop hiding them? The next week was war without bullets. Not dramatic war, bureaucratic war. The kind fought through memos, meetings, budget codes, safety boards, and people saying this is how we've always done it, as if that were a defense instead of a confession. Instructors resisted first. A senior sergeant named Malloy cornered her after a meeting. He was broad, red-faced, and angry enough to mistake volume for authority. You are making these trainees soft, he said. Kate closed her binder. No. I'm making them accurate. Combat is not therapy. Neither is negligence. Malloy stepped closer. I trained medics for 12 years. Then you should know better. His jaw tightened. You think because you have medals, you can walk in here and rewrite everything? Kate met his eyes. No. I think because Aaron Morrison nearly lost his leg on your training lane, I can. That landed. Malloy's face changed. Not guilt. Not yet. But impact. They need stress, he said, quieter. Yes. They need stress that teaches. Not stress that humiliates. Not stress that hides bad equipment. Not stress that makes them afraid to call black flag when reality enters the room. You don't understand my methods. I read your evaluations. 3 trainees quit after your lane last cycle. 2 reported panic attacks. 1 nearly overdosed 6 weeks later. Your pass rate looks good, because the ones you damage disappear before final scoring. Malloy went pale. That is private. So are casualty reports. I read those too. He looked away. Kate softened her voice, not to comfort him, but to make sure he heard her. I don't need you gone if you can change. I need you gone if you can't. Decide which man you are. Malloy left without answering. 3 days later, he appeared at her office door. I want to observe your resilience block, he said. Kate looked up. Why? Because I don't know how to teach it. That was the first victory. Small, unseen, more important than applause. Aaron woke fully on the 9th day. Kate visited after evening rounds. His room was dim. Teresa slept in the chair by the window. Robert had gone for coffee. Aaron looked better, but exhausted, his face thinner, eyes clearer. Heard you took over the program, he rasped. Interim. That's Army for permanent if you survive paperwork. Kate pulled a chair close. How's the pain? Manageable if I lie. Don't lie to your medic. 7. Kate checked the pump, then the chart. I'll ask Park about adjusting before therapy. Aaron stared at the ceiling. Do I still get to be a medic? There it was. The real wound. Kate leaned forward. Maybe. Maybe not the way you planned. Too early to know. His mouth tightened. That's not comforting. Comforting lies cost too much. He closed his eyes. I saw Tyler freeze. Tyler saw himself freeze. That's worse. Is he okay? No, but he is working on becoming okay. Aaron nodded faintly. I don't remember much. Just the crack. Then my leg felt wrong. Then Tyler's hands. Then your voice in the OR. You were sedated. Still heard you. You said my leg was still there. Kate nodded. I needed to know. I figured. His eyes opened and found hers. Did my brother ask? When he was dying? Did he know? Kate felt the room narrow. Teresa slept on, unaware. Aaron's voice trembled. My parents never asked details. I never wanted to hurt them. But I need to know if David was scared. Kate took a slow breath. This was not a question for a speech. It was not a question for hero language. It deserved truth, with mercy. He was scared, she said. Aaron's eyes filled. But not alone. I held his hand. I talked to him. He asked about your mother. Asked if she'd be mad he got blood on the photo in his pocket. Aaron laughed once through tears. She would have. I told him she would forgive him. He smiled. Then he asked me to tell you not to join the army just because of him. Aaron turned his face away. Kate waited. You never told me that, he whispered. I never had the chance. And maybe I was afraid of what it would do to you. I joined anyway. Yes. Was he angry? No. He was 19. He was dying. He was thinking about the people he loved. That means he was still himself. Aaron covered his eyes with his hand. Kate stayed. That was sometimes the whole treatment. Stay. When Robert returned with coffee, Kate stepped into the hall and let the family have what came next. Park found her near the elevator. You look like you need sleep. Everyone keeps saying that. Because your face is making a compelling argument. Kate leaned against the wall. Aaron asked about David. Park's expression softened. Hard answer? Honest one. Those usually are. They stood together as a gurney rolled past. Park watched Kate carefully. You know, you are allowed to not be the person everyone comes to for closure. Kate looked at her. Are you offering to take shifts? I am offering dinner. Kate blinked. Park smiled faintly. Not a date, before you panic. Food. 2 professionals. Maybe 1 vegetable. Kate almost laughed. I don't panic. You absolutely panic, very quietly. Dinner sounds good. It was not romance. Not really. It was something gentler and more dangerous to Kate. Friendship. The possibility of being known without being used. They ate in the hospital cafeteria because both of them were too tired to leave. Park chose soup. Kate chose coffee and a protein bar. Park stared at the tray. That is not dinner. It has calories. So does glue. Kate ate the protein bar anyway. They talked about surgery, bad hospital coffee, trainees, and the strange loneliness of being the calmest person in a room full of disaster. At one point, Park said, You carry every patient with you, don't you? Kate looked at the cup in her hands. Less than I used to. That was not a no. No. Park nodded. I keep a list. Kate looked up. Patients? Names. Initials if I don't have permission to remember more. The ones I lost. The ones I nearly lost. The ones who changed how I practice. Why? Because pretending not to remember made me cruel. Remembering on purpose made me careful. Kate let that settle. Remembering on purpose, she repeated. Yes. For the first time in days, Kate felt something inside her unclench. Not fixed, not healed, just less alone. The program rebuild began in earnest the following Monday. Kate created 3 pillars: medicine, judgment, return. Medicine was skill, bleeding control, airway, shock, burns, crush, pediatric trauma, prolonged field care, evacuation decisions. Judgment was harder. When to stop a scenario, when to challenge an officer, when to admit uncertainty, when to choose the least bad option and own the consequence. Return was the piece no one wanted to fund. Kate made them fund it. Return meant sleep after casualty exposure, peer debriefs, mandatory counseling access, family education, no trainee punished for reporting stress symptoms, no instructor allowed to call trauma weakness and keep teaching. The first time she presented it to command, a general with silver hair frowned. Director Brennan, are we training medics or social workers? Kate clicked to the next slide. It showed retention numbers, dropout rates, suicide statistics, medical error rates after high-stress training accidents. The room went quiet. We are training medics who remain medics after their first dead patient, Kate said, unless you prefer replacing broken people every cycle and calling that toughness. Nobody asked that question again. 6 months later, Aaron Morrison walked onto the training field with a brace under his uniform and no cane in his hand. The whole class saw him. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. Kate had warned them not to turn his pain into a show. They simply made room. Aaron took his place between Tyler and Lopez, breathing hard, jaw tight, eyes forward. Kate stood beside Hasker at the observation line. He should not be out here, Hasker said. He knows, Kate answered. Are you worried? Yes. Then why allow it? Kate watched Aaron adjust his gloves with careful, stubborn fingers. Because recovery is not the absence of risk. It is choosing the right risk for the right reason. The lane began with smoke, screaming, and a casualty hidden beneath broken boards. Tyler called black flag when one prop shifted wrong. Lopez confirmed safety. Aaron moved slower than before, but his hands were precise. He found the bleed, packed it, marked the time, and looked at his team. "Don't give me the wound we want," he said. "Give me the wound we have." Kate felt the words land across the field. That was how lessons survived, not in speeches, in another voice, at the right moment, under pressure. At graduation, Teresa and Robert Morrison sat in the front row. Reynolds stood behind them. Park leaned against the rail with her arms folded, smiling like she already knew Kate was trying not to cry. Hasker gave the official remarks. Then Kate stepped to the microphone. "You came here to learn medicine," she said. "You learned more than that. You learned that courage is not noise. It is not pride. It is not pretending you are fine when you are not. Courage is telling the truth fast enough to save someone. Courage is asking for help before silence becomes a second wound. Courage is returning on purpose." The graduates stood still. Kate looked at Aaron. "Some of you will lose patience. Some of you will carry names for the rest of your lives. Do not turn those names into chains. Turn them into reasons to be careful, honest, and kind. The person in front of you does not need a perfect medic. They need a present one." After the ceremony, Aaron pressed a patch into her hand. It showed a medic cross, a field litter, and one line stitched underneath. "Make bad places feel less bad." "Class voted on it," Aaron said. "Unanimous." Kate stared at the patch for a long moment. David Morrison's dog tags rested warm against her chest. For years, they had felt like proof of failure. Now they felt like a compass. That night, Kate returned to her office and pinned the patch beside David's letter. She stood there until the building grew quiet. The past had not disappeared. It never would. But it no longer chased her. It walked beside her now, scarred and honest, carrying lessons instead of chains. Kate Brennan had once believed being seen meant being exposed. She had learned the truth the hard way. Being seen by the right people could give back the pieces war, grief, and shame had taken. She was still a nurse, still a medic, still the woman who could not walk away from someone bleeding. But she was no longer hiding her hands. Somewhere down the hall, a new trainee laughed nervously. An instructor told him to breathe. A monitor beeped in the simulation lab. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Kate turned off the office light. Tomorrow, another class would arrive. Another group of young medics would learn how to hold pressure, how to tell the truth, and how to survive the work of saving others. And Kate would be there, not as a ghost from a war story, not as a secret waiting to be revealed, as herself. That was the ending she had never expected. Not revenge, not applause, not a medal. 1,000 hands made steadier because one woman finally stopped hiding hers. And that was more than enough. It was everything. The end. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you are listening from. Your city might be the next one I read.